The shuttle's docking clamps bit down with a hollow thud that echoed through the hull. Arya Locke kept her breath steady, eyes on the viewport as the citadel of archives slid into view, a ring of obsidian plates orbiting a dying red star, its light thin and feverish. The station looked less like a building and more like a sealed question. Everything about it said, "Read carefully." The hatch cycled. 3 wardens stepped aboard, chitin lacquered, movements clipped, translation collars humming. The lead warden's crest flashed caution yellow. "Commander Arya Locke," it said. "By decree of the conquered of civilized species, you will surrender all recording devices and comply with restricted sightline protocols. You are not to touch the interfaces unless instructed." Arya unlatched her holster and placed the empty pistol on the tray. She had given up weapons long before the shuttle undocked from the human embassy frigate, but ritual mattered to the wardens. She let them sweep her for microglass and neutron-bonded keys. They found nothing. She carried only a ring of scars on both hands that never set off alarms. "Understood," she said. They ushered her down a corridor the width of a rifle barrel. The citadel did not waste space on grandeur. The floor flexed with the station's spin. The air smelled faintly of ozone and oil. Somewhere beyond the bulkhead, the red star wheezed. Arya keyed her breathing to the warden's footfall, letting the rhythm settle her pulse. It was not fear she managed. It was arrival. Archive Room 0 lay behind a door that looked like a seam in stone. It admitted them with a whisper and no visible mechanism. Inside, the ceiling arced high and shadowed, packed with sensor nodes like a glittering swarm. A single dais rose in the center. On it stood High Scholar Virkesh, spectral in layered ivory membranes, his pupils ringed in copper. Knowledge had aged him into angles. "Commander Locke." His voice rode the room's speakers, neutral and sunless. "Welcome to the Citadel. I am Virkesh, presiding archivist for this inquiry." He made a motion that could have been politeness or an adjustment to his equilibrium. "You were special forces before you became a historian." "Once," Arya said, "and now a curator of explanations." Virkesh let the words rest like a scalpel. "We do not require explanations today. We require proof. Proof of what?" "That your species is survivable." Arya kept her gaze level. "If you needed proof, you would not have built a room around the answer." A susurrus ran through the upper gallery where observers clustered behind filtered glass. Military envoys. Scholars, risk actuaries with their fraying equations. The conquered had assembled a choir of doubt. Above them, the sensor nodes pivoted, fixing on Arya as if she were an exhibit. Virkesh flicked a talon. The dais woke. Blue light braided itself into a lattice of coordinates, then resolved into a blizzard of static. The first image punched through, a planet wearing a ring of smoke. Caldora 4. The Siege. Arya recognized the battlefield before the caption crawled along the edge of the projection. "This recording is taken from your own suit cams and emergency drones," Virkesh said. "Time index minus 30 hours to evacuation. Human defenders 47. Besieging force 894. He let the numbers hang. "By all models, this is a mass grave." The projection dropped her into rubble. The audio came up raw, wind-cutting wires, metal crying under stress, the panting of a camera operator who had forgotten the microphone was on. A street peeled away into a crater where a residence block had stood. Beyond, shapes moving in smoke, ordered, confident in numbers. Arya found her past self by posture alone. Shorter hair then, heavier armor, the same squared stance. The camera, clipped to her shoulder, relayed her field of view, the mosaic of broken glass, the flash of a raised hand, the tight language of a squad that did not waste breath. "Enemy armor at Cross Street Delta," someone said. "Let them take Delta," Arya's voice answered from years ago. "We don't want Delta." The Concord observers leaned forward as if weight could bring them closer. The projection split into 4 panes: Overwatch, Alley, Command, Drone, each feeding a different wound in the city. Human signatures flickered, blinked out, flared again. Virkesh expanded a pane, highlighting an injured private dragging 2 civilians into a stairwell while his blood made a track on the floor. A chitter slipped through the gallery. Pity, disgust, confusion, Arya watched the moment unfold where everything tends to break. On the feed, enemy infantry surged into the plaza at Delta, encountering exactly what they expected: flimsy cover and frightened defenders. They advanced fast, disciplined, certain. Then the plaza flexed. Caldor's infrastructure had been sleeved with emergency conduits after a quake season decades earlier. Human engineers had mapped those arteries the first night of the siege. In the projection, microcharges popped in sequence, and the plaza behaved like an animal. The pavement slumped. The conduits groaned and snapped, and an entire segment of ground rotated like a lid. 2 enemy walkers dropped into the revealed maintenance cavern. The third reeled and slammed a building, bringing down a facade that had been seeded with glass and ceramic threaded with conductive wire. Overwatch feed, a human marksman fired into the wire and turned the falling dust into a charged veil. The enemy's optic suites blinded themselves to avoid overload. For 5 seconds, and 5 seconds is a kingdom, the besiegers were guessing at the shapes in front of them. "Improvised trap," Virkesh said. He had the grace not to sound impressed. "Risk acceptance beyond rational thresholds." "You keep calling it risk," Arya said. "We called it math." The projection rolled. A medic splinted a femur with scavenged antenna spars. A corporal used a child's marble to block a coolant line so a generator could cough out 1 more hour of power. A cook, no rank insignia, guided refugees through a route marked with chalk arrows that dissolved in rain, knowing the storm would do the erasing for them. Virkesh paused on a frame where a soldier took a hit across the ribs, staggered, and grinned into his own camera with blood in his mouth. The grin wasn't madness. It was transmission. I am here. I am still. The grin meant the plan has breath. A murmur rippled through the gallery. "This individual," Virkesh said softly. "He should have lost consciousness." "He did an hour later," Arya said, "after the civilians reached the tunnels. And then he woke up when he heard the charge go early. He recalculated the angles on his back." Virkesh's pupils tightened. Statistical deviance layered on statistical deviance. "Take the layer apart," Arya said. "You'll find preparation inside." The feeds pushed toward the siege's hinge. Enemy armor regrouped, learned, adapted, brought down a corner of the transit station where the evac corridor began. The move fractured the human defense into pockets. That should have done it. That is where most sieges crack. People become islands. Islands erode. The recording did not show islands. It showed bridges, flash-coded hand signals across smoke, relayed ammunition in a bucket brigade, 4 defenders trading places with 3 so the line would not develop a memory of the gap. It showed a private throwing herself over a broken power panel during a surge because she wore better insulation. It showed someone writing on a wall with a torn glove, door jammed, "Go through laundry." That scrawl saved 37 lives. Virkesh thinned the air with a gesture. "I see no heroic weapon. No decisive technology." "You're looking at the wrong scale," Arya said. "The decisive tool was time. We bought minutes and spent them like currency. Bought with lives. Everything real is paid for." He rotated the projection to the final corridor where the evac shaft chewed air, and the last civilians climbed into the belly of a train bound for an exit clawed through 2 kilometers of rock. The enemy pushed with fresh confidence, convinced the humans were out of tricks. They were not wrong. The bag of tricks was empty. The human soldier with the shattered ribs appeared at the mouth of the corridor, rifle held too loosely to be useful. He tapped the wall twice with the stock. The sound carried, thin and deliberate. "Signal?" Virkesh asked. "Confirmation," Arya said. Everyone alive was past the second bend. He could let it go. Let what? The corridor's braces had been overcut. Only friction held them proud. The soldier stepped back and put his shoulder into the nearest support. Bone met steel. The camera saw the moment everything labored. Then the braces gave, the corridor sagged, and a cascade of debris flowed like a slow river, forming a new choke. Enemy troops stalled under a falling geometry they had not predicted. The soldier turned his head toward his own camera. The grin reappeared, smaller, almost private. He said, "As long as one of us stands, you lose." He held until the dust took him out of frame. The projection froze. The room's machines went silent. In the gallery, someone exhaled with an audible tremor. The red star's light pressed on the window like an exhausted eye. Virkesh spoke into the quiet. Humans do not fight to win. Arya let the line arrive. Let it claim the space it wanted. They fight, Virkesh finished, so they do not lose. Not quite, Arya said. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. We fight so someone else doesn't. In the glass above, figures shifted, calculating, revising, discarding comforting models. The wardens at the door stood straighter without knowing why. The station's hum returned, a low mechanical heartbeat. Virkesh set a new sequence onto the dais with careful hands. Then we will examine a scenario without civilians, he said. No innocents to protect. No excuse for your calculus, Arya nodded once. Play it. He watched her with something close to cue. The projection ignited the chamber before Arya could brace mentally. Blue-white light expanded into a prison complex built of alloy and intention, a geometric snarl buried beneath slate-black mountains. The place radiated sterility. No color, no insignias, nothing to indicate ownership. That was how black sites preferred to breathe. Virkesh stood with hands folded behind him, his posture perfect. Designation: Facility M54, Off-World Extraction Center. Arya knew the real name humans had given it, the Maw. We confiscated this footage from a transport vessel after the war, Virkesh continued. Your people were kept here as test subjects for endurance studies. He didn't say experiments. He didn't need to. The phrase endurance studies implied everything. The feed resolved, now sharp. A cell block, metal-grated floors, overhead pipes sweating condensation, bulbs flickering in a stutter rhythm. The corridor filled with a stench, disinfectant failing to mask rot. Movement registered inside one cell, humans gaunt and bruised. 13 prisoners, no weapons, no armor. One warden in the gallery inhaled as though expecting a spectacle of chaos. Arya felt the temperature of the room shift as more onlookers leaned forward. Pain made them curious. The recording timestamp blinked to 0. Inside the cell, a man paced slowly. Broad shoulders diminished by starvation, but his stride carried precision. Corporal Evan Rourke, age 29, demolition specialist. His fingers traced the rhythm of a habit Arya recognized even before she processed it, tapping thumb to knuckle while thinking through metal. On the screen, Rourke knelt beside a drain hole. He pried a bolt loose using a shard of something unidentifiable. Virkesh narrowed his gaze. Why examine plumbing fixtures instead of conserving strength? Arya's reply was even. Because humans look for exits before they beg. Another prisoner approached, Lynn Hallberg, field linguist. Small, wiry, eyes bright with ideas that refused to stay caged. She placed a strip of cloth beside Rourke. He wrapped the bolt with the cloth, creating a makeshift buffer, and struck it against another piece of metal. Sparks flared. Gasps echoed through the gallery. That cloth, what is its origin? Virkesh asked. Uniform lining, Arya said. She tore it from her sleeve. Why? So he wouldn't burn his hand. The aliens shifted. One murmured something in a tongue not carried by the translator collared at its throat. Whatever the words, disgust was clear. They found compassion inconvenient. On the feed, Rourke slid the bolt into the drain. The cloth created friction. The bolt caught. He twisted hard. Metal groaned. The grate popped free. Hallberg smiled. Not triumph. Recognition. Proof her theory about outdated bolts was right. Rourke leaned close and whispered to the group, voice low but picked up by the drone. We crawl. No one screams. Not a sound, they moved. Bones and courage squeezing into darkness. The projection cut to a ventilation shaft deeper inside the complex. Their progress was slow. Elbows scraped, knees bled. Behind them, the cell door burst open. Guards swarmed. Arya's expression stayed neutral. Virkesh studied her face. You do not react. You asked for proof, Arya replied. Not comfort. On screen, Rourke paused at a junction and signaled. Hallberg crawled past him and pressed her ear to duct plating. She timed steps, one guard passing above every 11 seconds. She mouthed numbers. Rourke nodded. He punched the grate once. Silent. Punch 2. Still quiet. Punch 3. Panel popped out cleanly. They emerged from the shaft into the laundry depot, steam rising from vents, automated press arms clacking together like mechanical jawbones. The humans ghosted across the floor. One guard appeared ahead, surveying bins. Rourke motioned. The linguist, Hallberg, small, harmless on sight, approached the guard. She stumbled, performing frailty. When the guard reached to steady her, she shifted weight. Fast, efficient. A palm strike crushed throat cartilage. No wasted motion. She caught him before he fell and lowered him without a thud. The gallery erupted in shocked murmurs. "She is not combat-trained," Virkesh muttered. Arya replied softly. Humans learn when survival demands they learn. The projection shifted again. Security Corridor A, white floors. Blue lights. Guns mounted on rails. Sirens blared. The escape was detected. Rourke ushered the group forward as the automated gun mounts powered up. The first turret scanned the corridor, laser guidance flickering. "No weapons," one alien whispered. "They are finished." On screen, Rourke grabbed a metal tray from a supply cart, angled it, and slid on his knees directly into the turret's sight line. The turret fired. Plasma bolts hit the reflective tray, scattering off. 3 prisoners sprinted behind him, using his low crouch and the plasma glare as cover. Arya's throat tightened. She remembered the aftermath of that move. The burns, the skin that peeled. Rourke never mentioned pain in the reports. Humans didn't annotate suffering. Rourke used the destroyed tray to smash the turret housing. Sparks rained. The turret died. Second checkpoint. Biometric lock blocked the only exit into the outer compound. "We can't break that," said one of the prisoners on the recording. Hallberg stepped forward. There was a panel, a numeric string on the side. She scanned it once, lips moving. After a moment, she lifted a strip of reflective foil from the laundry pile she'd carried with her and angled it to catch the keypad surface. Heat imprints revealed faint concentrations on 4 numbers. She entered a probable sequence. Click. The lock disengaged. Several alien spectators recoiled. Virkesh's voice was tight. "Impossible. Those boxes randomize heat." Arya's voice was calmer than her pulse. "No, they randomize every 7 minutes." She struck within the window. The door slid open. Beyond it lay the perimeter, outdoors, wind howling. No cover. The final obstacle, a perimeter fence that emitted electric arcs between poles. Each arc powerful enough to char bone. Hallberg opened her mouth to speak, but Rourke stepped past her. He lifted a long, waterlogged sheet from an industrial bin near the exit. He wrapped it around 2 metal poles, one in each hand. The wet cloth insulated. He pushed the poles into the electric field and forced a breach. The arc leapt around him, but failed to complete a circuit. He held the gap while the others ran through. A young prisoner hesitated at the threshold. Fear pinned him. Rourke met his eyes. "You're going home," he said. "Move!" The kid sprinted. Rourke kept the gap open until he was the last one. His body shook. The cloth dried. Sparks licked his forearms. He threaded himself through the breach. The recording clipped abruptly. Feed lost. The chamber lights returned. Silence landed heavy. Virkesh rested both palms on the console. His voice held genuine disbelief. None of them were soldiers except Rourke. They dismantled a detention facility without weapons. "They used environment," Arya said, "and time, and each other." "You make it sound strategic." It was. He paced slowly, every movement deliberate. "Your people convert objects to tools, obstacles to routes, harm to advantage." Arya didn't answer. Virkesh turned toward the gallery of alien dignitaries. "Observe their psychology. They do not rely on luck or genetic superiority. Their survival is volitional, self-pointed." Her voice cut in, sharp. "Not self, collective." He paused, studying her. She held his gaze. They didn't escape because they feared dying. They escaped because someone behind them needed a chance. In the projection, a still image appeared as the system searched for continuation. Rourke's final frame, body silhouetted against sparks, hands gripping metal poles, eyes steady, froze above the dais. A new voice rose in the gallery. "Admiral Keshta of the Varun Dominion." If a species can convert imprisonment into tactical leverage, then they cannot be contained. Another envoy, scaled in cobalt plates, leaned forward. This is why they win wars. Their pain redirects them. Virkesh exhaled through teeth designed for cutting. We face the dilemma. If allowed to flourish, they become unstoppable. If preemptively eliminated, you commit genocide, Arya said. No, Virkesh corrected. We commit prevention. Arya's expression hardened. You've seen 13 prisoners improvise freedom using trash. What exactly do you think humanity will improvise when cornered by the entire Concord? The chamber felt suddenly smaller. Virkesh's pupils constricted further. There is one more file. It is classified beyond this council. A battle humans should not have survived. I know the one. It will show whether your species is a threat or a warning. Arya stepped forward. For the first time, her voice carried steel. Play it. The dais recognized the command. The room went black before blue light rebuilt the scene, a battlefield framed by stars. Human ships burning at the edge of a gravity tear. The file title stamped itself across the air. No, Virkesh corrected. We commit prevention. Arya's expression hardened. You've seen 13 prisoners improvise freedom using trash. What exactly do you think humanity will improvise when cornered by the entire Concord? The chamber felt suddenly smaller. Virkesh's pupils constricted further. There is one more file. It is classified beyond this council. A battle humans should not have survived. I know the one. It will show whether your species is a threat or a warning. Arya stepped forward. For the first time, her voice carried steel. Play it. The dais recognized the command. The room went black before blue light rebuilt the scene, a battlefield framed by stars, human ships burning at the edge of a gravity tear. The file title stamped itself across the air. The chamber darkened to absolute black. Sound dampened. Oxygen vents slowed, even the red star pulse dimmed. Only the dais remained awake, forming a slow bloom of starlight until a battlefield snapped into focus. The Vega Rift. Arya knew the site intimately. The rift wasn't a void. It was hunger-given physics. A tier of shifting gravity, well cores, all pulling in contradictory vectors. Ships vanished here even when guided by auto-nav. The projection revealed 3 human cruisers adrift, Helios, Tyrannus, and Skylark, their hulls gutted, plating peeled back like burnt skin. Fires burned in zero-gravity spirals. Escape pods floated behind wreckage. The last human fleet defending the civilian caravan. Virkesh stood a fraction closer to the projection, his voice almost reverent. Population manifest. 16,402 civilians were present on the transports behind these cruisers. No reinforcements, no fuel, no tactical advantage. He rotated a new layer onto the projection. Enemy ships forming a crescent of steel. 44 Concord warships. Arya didn't blink. She had lived it. Inside the Helios, a helmet cam activated. The image stabilized on Captain Jalen Ward, face streaked with soot, blood clotted along his jawline, eyes sharp. Engineering is gone. Life support at 30%. We hold until the convoy crosses the gravity corridor. Someone off-screen. Sir, we won't survive the pull. Ward didn't hesitate. We don't need to survive. We need them to, Arya exhaled slowly. She remembered how Ward spoke, clear, final, free of theatrics. He never raised his voice. He didn't need to. The gallery above her rippled with whispers. Even seasoned war strategists were thrown by the absence of panic. The projection shifted to the command deck. Ward leaned over the tactical table, studying the rift's shifting gravity graph. It resembled a living pulse, violent and unpredictable. Virkesh pointed with a talon. He should order evacuation. Arya didn't look away. He already evacuated everyone who wasn't essential. Ward activated ship-wide mic. Helios crew, if you are still here, it is by choice. Our civilians will escape because of us, not in spite of us. Lock your harnesses. It's time. A dozen voices answered. Aye, Captain. No screams. No theatrics, just alignment. Footage cut to Tyrannus. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Cole sprinted through flooding corridors, using a pry bar to lift a fallen beam off a trapped technician. "You shouldn't be here," he gasped. Cole ignored him, snapping the pry bar free and slinging him over her shoulder. "Then live long enough to yell at me about it." She limped toward the evac hatch. The projection showed her pausing, setting the tech down gently. Then she sprinted back toward flames. Alien observers leaned in, alarmed. Virkesh frowned. "She returned to the destruction?" Arya nodded. There were two more trapped. Now Skylark Ensign Kai Moreno, barely 20, sat alone in the dorsal gunner nest. The feed displayed his trembling hands on the controls. Plasma rounds shredded the hull around him. He kept breathing through it. Moreno whispered into his mic. "Mom, don't cry when they tell you." He gritted his jaw, locked his aim, and fired until sparks blinded the feed. Arya's jaw clenched. She had written letters to every family afterwards. The room's silence thickened. Virkesh activated a second window overlay, conquered Admiralty AI, simulation.outcome. Probability. Human fleet survival, Yizaz 0.03%. Civilian survival, Yizaz 0.12%. The aliens watched as Ward studied the collapse point, a moment where the rift's gravity fluctuated enough to allow a single safe corridor. A scientist in the viewing gallery hissed. "He's calculating the anomaly manually." "That's impossible," Arya spoke quietly. "Human intuition isn't guessing. It's pattern recognition we don't know we're running." Ward issued final order. "All ships, break formation. Use emergency thrusters to slam into the conquered crescent. Force them off vector." A communications officer blinked. "Sir, impact maneuver?" Ward locked eyes with the holo recorder, his message to anyone who ever studied this. "Humanity doesn't win because we're strong. We win because we refuse to surrender what matters." The ship's klaxon wailed. The Helios turned into the enemy formation. The Tyrannus followed. The Skylark, too damaged to turn, ignited self-destruct to create shock displacement. Arya remembered the blast, a silent blossom of silver blue that shook every instrument panel in the convoy. Virkesh whispered, disbelief fracturing his tone. "They sacrificed 3 warships. To open a route?" Arya corrected him. "They invested 3 warships. Sacrifice implies loss. Humanity traded assets for lives." The projection zoomed into civilian transport sensors. The convoy crossed the corridor. Every escape pod exited the Rift.0 civilian casualties. The gallery, filled with shaken breaths, aliens, unused to witnessing victory without conquest. Virkesh stepped closer to Arya, voice sharp. "Your species risks extinction to protect unrelated genetic lines. There is no logic in it." Arya met his stare. "There's no logic in love, but there is power." A third overlay appeared. Concord Analysis Matrix. Human combat motive classification. Not conquest. Not territory. Not dominance. Protection. Aliens shifted, uneasy. A personnel officer muttered from the gallery. "We cannot defeat a species that does not fear losing itself." Arya's voice stayed steady. "You misunderstand. Humans fear losing others. That is infinitely more dangerous." Virkesh swallowed something that might have been pride or fear. The dais projected one final image, a still frame, taken from a rescue shuttle's drone feed minutes after the explosion. Captain Ward's body, pinned beneath wreckage, hand still resting on the manual override that rerouted power long enough to finish the maneuver. His eyes were open. He died looking at the corridor his people escaped through. Virkesh's throat strained. Why did he not leave? He ensured success. The crew would have followed him? Arya answered without hesitation. Because someone had to stay until the last second. Humans do not abandon the fulcrum. She faced the gallery. Now you understand why humans win. The Concord Council began murmuring, fear twisting into strategy. Admiral Keshta spoke first. Humanity must be either allied with or eliminated. A second envoy. If we strike now, we might succeed. Another. If we strike and fail, we die. The chamber erupted into chaos. Virkesh raised a claw. Commander Locke, I must advise preemptive neutralization of the human species. Wardens shifted, ready to seize her. Arya didn't move. Instead, she tapped her wrist console. A new projection filled the air. Concord Fleet lost simulations in the event of war against humanity. Result: 100%. Concord annihilation, because humans didn't fight like empires. They fought like family. Arya's voice was low, unshakable. You fear us because you don't understand us. Humans do not seek war. We seek purpose. She walked toward the exit. Every step deliberate. Attack Earth, she said, and you'll face a species willing to die for strangers. Virkesh called after her, voice cracking. What happens if we choose alliance? She paused in the doorway and looked over her shoulder. Then you face a species willing to live for you. The doors opened. Arya stepped through. Behind her, the Concord voted out Earth was granted sovereign, untouchable status. No empire would move against humanity ever again, not out of pity, out of terror and respect. FY.